It's gotten to a point where every time I get on this godforsaken app and decide to watch some videos, it feels like it's a new year. I have fun though. Let's go. Y'all know the vibes. What's good, y'all? I'm back. Listen, currently, first time ever making a video while someone's in the house. My girlfriend is here right now as we speak. But hey, does it matter? Absolutely not. We're still gonna get this shit out. Anyways, the cutest little serial killer, Norman Explained by Grief. We fuck with Grief around here. Grief makes great videos. These are whole new comments that I've never seen a day in my life. Let's do it. Like, comment, and subscribe before I block you. Your discretion is advised, by the way. Gotta say that.
Hello friends, this is Grief speaking. Today we're going to be looking at Norman by Stan Silas, a horror comedy about an 8-year-old serial killer. After
We're already starting off pretty bad. Let's keep going though.
murdering several kids in a small town, some of his classmates are starting to investigate what happened, and Norman must keep them off his scent while still maintaining his life as a normal 8-year-old. I found this comic by accident while browsing online and was immediately drawn to its lovable chibi art style.
Who that is?
Hold on now, salutations, fine shit.
Who that is?
That's in stark contrast with the disturbing subject matter. I love dark comedy and haven't really covered many comics of this nature on the channel. It's also kind of obscure, so I wanted to shine light on this diamond in the rough. If you're a horror movie fan, you'll love all the references littered throughout, and the morbid humor is fantastic. But let's not waste any more time and get right into it. This is Norman Explained. The first page of this comic opens hilariously blunt with the words, "This is Norman. He's 8 years old and he kills people." A blonde kid with a striped shirt, likely inspired by Freddy Krueger, holds a satchel full of deadly instruments. It then cuts to another.
I'm not like that's horror. That nigga trippy. I wish I was a comic guy so I could find stuff like this. Turns out I was just an anime guy. It's not that much better or worse, but you know.
Boy named Jeremy riding his bike along the outskirts of a small town that he refers to as Hicksville. It's hard to tell if this is the actual name of the town or just him insulting it. He tells his mom on the phone that he'll be late tonight and that he's got to sell some raffle tickets to raise money for the school. He says he's going out alone because of how much he hates the other kids in his class. This kid is clearly a bit spoiled and hates that he's been forced to move to a crappy small town. Nearby, we can see a familiar striped shirt lurking behind the trees and watching. The kid rides further out from town, and his inner monologue informs us that he was given a tip of where to sell tickets by a classmate.
No, he's making fun of him because he said, "Does Hicks live any further?" Yeah, he called it Hicks. Yeah, he does. He's not fucking where he lives.
The last house on the left on the road just outside of town. Another horror movie reference. Suddenly, Jeremy hits a line of barbed wire, sending him into a tree and wrecking his bike. At the same time, he finds that his phone service is out. Nearby, he spots several signs on a tree saying, "Special offer, we'll purchase all of your raffle tickets, and we fix bikes." Wow, what a coincidence. They're all pointing at an ominous looking house that you might recognize as looking pretty similar to the Bates house in Psycho, the same movie that inspired Norman's name. Jeremy doesn't find it suspicious and in fact is
this is real deal horror movie shit. Oh my god, I didn't know it was that damn bad. Yo, wish it
happy that he's about to sell all of his tickets. He finds the door ajar and starts going into his pitch to sell tickets. Looking in, this place is about as spooky as you'd expect, with a stuffed crow on the wall and a metal door at the end of the hall. You actually might recognize this as a nod to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Jeremy is a little freaked out, but decides to creep inside and hopefully find a phone to call his mom. Meanwhile, Norman watches him from the stairs. Passing by the kitchen, the boy sees someone rummaging through the fridge and it turns out to be an armless zombie. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. Jeremy stops himself from screaming and manages to sneak back into the hall before the zombie spots him. He finds an old phone in the next room but has no idea how to use it as it's a rotary phone. He finally decides to leave, but as he walks back through the house, his foot snags on yet another barbed wire trap, causing him to collapse along with a nearby cabinet. Out of one of the drawers pours a pile of raffle tickets from all the local schools. As Jeremy pieces together what this means, Norman approaches from behind in a Jason-style hockey mask and wielding a knife. In an exterior shot of the house, we can hear the screams of Jeremy and the gruesome sound of him being stabbed repeatedly. The next day in Norman's class, we're introduced to Miss Jameson.
Hold on now. Salutations, fine shit.
You see how we both wearing red, right? Shit. You show you a different type of red shit. You know what I'm saying? I run red lights.
His teacher, who's kind of a psycho herself. Wielding a yardstick, she's pretty pissed at the low amount of tickets being sold and asks them why they aren't selling. One of the students suggests that the prizes suck, and Miss Jameson immediately hits her in the head with an eraser. Another student, named Grace, says that her family doesn't do door-to-door, and that her father wrote a check for all of her tickets instead. The teacher then goes down the line of students chastising them for what they've sold, saying that what they sell will dictate their grades on the next quiz. She asks one kid to give her one reason why she shouldn't smack him, and he says because he's wearing glasses. Well, it's the wrong answer, and she straight up smacks the glasses off of his face. So yeah, that's an introduction to Miss Jameson. She gets to Jeremy's desk and finds it empty. Meanwhile, Norman is sweating in his seat, hoping his secret plan will work. We're also introduced to a little devil that Norman talks to, kind of like his imaginary friend. It's as if instead of an angel and a devil, he just has the devil on his shoulder. Anyway, Norman totally overreacts to Jeremy missing, and the teacher finds a letter on his desk. With a ton of misspellings, the letter is supposedly from Jeremy, saying that he took the raffle money and ran. He says there's no point looking for me, I'm never coming back, and then there's a drawing at the bottom of Jeremy flipping the bird. So I guess this was Norman's plan, and it worked. Miss Jameson is pissed and starts calling up Jeremy's parents to complain about his behavior. His mom picks up and is crying hysterically about her missing son, to which the teacher responds with no tact. She's barely listening and ends the call by saying that she has her own problems here with 20 missing raffle tickets. Outside her office, some of the students listen in. Apparently, the rich girl, Grace, had a crush on Jeremy and decides her and her friends are going
Second place, you came back, you failed.
to find out what happened to him. After school, Norman walks home and sees a giant missing child poster for Jeremy. He's pleased with the
Man, if you don't get the fuck out of here with this fucking picture. We know damn well he don't look like that. We know damn well he don't look like that.
results of his crime and feels like a celebrity. Suddenly, Miss Jameson rolls up and covers the missing poster with a wanted poster instead. Now that's funny. At school the next day, Grace and her posse, Olga and Alice, start coming up with a plan on how to start their investigation into Jeremy's disappearance. After showing off her fancy new cell phone, Grace says they'll start by conducting interviews with their classmates. They start with a dirty girl named Sylvia, who they repeatedly call poor and treat as if she's a leper. They try and ask the girl questions, but she just ignores them, too caught up playing with the class pet, a cat. Eventually, she distracts the cat and then eats its food. Okay, well, poor or not, this kid's weird. Next, they interview Norman and decide to take the good cop, bad cop approach. Alice talks to him sweetly, but is quickly interrupted by Grace, who demands he tell them all he knows about Jeremy. Norman tries to play it cool, saying that Jeremy was a pretty cool guy. Unfortunately, he uses the word was here, and Grace starts laying into him, suggesting that Norman knows he's dead already. Meanwhile, the devil on Norman's shoulder calls him stupid for basically confessing in less than 5 seconds. Later in class, Norman is freaking out about the interview with Grace. At the same time, Grace is chatting up a boy named Owen, saying he's now the least ugly boy in school, so they should date. He doesn't seem to care, and Grace is suddenly hit on the head by a wad of paper. She opens it to find a ransom-style note that reads, "Shut your mouth, you poophead." She looks over and assumes it to be Sylvia, throwing it back. She turns back to her conversation with Owen, but is hit again by another note. This time it says, "You stupid cow, if you talk I will end you." Grace quickly figures out who's throwing them and is far from intimidated. In fact, she doesn't even take them seriously, just yelling at Norman that he's a moron. Later at recess, Norman hatches a plan to invite Grace to play.
You know, I can say that's a little bit smarter because at least he's not literally like writing it down and everyone's like, "Nigga, we know what your writing looks like." At least he's not doing
in
that.
the sandbox
You know,
with him, where he'll push her into a pit and bury her alive. This plan fails right out the gate, however, when Grace refuses to play in the sandbox with him in the first place. In fact, she tells him this isn't a sandbox, but a litter box for the cat. Norman leaves in defeat, and a few minutes later, Grace gets a text from Owen asking her to meet him in the school tonight at midnight. Grace is so happy, she plays hooky and leaves school early to get ready for her supposed date. As she runs off, Owen comes out, revealing that someone stole his phone. phone. Looks like this may be Norman's final plan. That night at the local bar, Miss Jameson is getting drunk, lamenting about her crappy life as a teacher. After accidentally choking on her cigarette, she breaks into tears and starts confessing her woes to the bartender. Apparently, she finally found a nice guy to date named Herbert. This is actually Grace's father. They had this kind of weird deal where she would guarantee his daughter's good grades, and in exchange, he would support her financially. Kind of a weird sugar daddy situation. She describes how they had an amazing time together and fell in love, but it's clear from the flashbacks that Herbert is not into her, and that she's actually pretty obnoxious. Jameson goes on to say that they only had one rule. She was never to go to his house. Well, earlier tonight, she broke that rule. She stands outside of Herbert's house under a streetlight, and this is a direct reference to the house from The Exorcist. Anyway, the teacher rang the doorbell for 10 minutes with no answer and finally entered the house. Here she saw something strange. A woman plastered all over the walls.
Oh. Well, that's actually not so regular. Sorry, I'm dead.
The bartender assumes she means the woman's dismembered corpse, but Miss Jameson tells him that it was actually just dozens of photos of a blonde woman. If you look closely, one of these portraits actually says Grace on it. It seems this may be Grace's mother who shared her name. As she looked around at her boyfriend's obsession, Herbert came home carrying a large bag. She had just enough time to hide in the closet. Herbert dropped the bag to the floor, which was squirming, and poking out from the top, blonde hair. Herbert then pulled out a syringe and injected it into the bag. Judging by the size, Miss Jameson assumes this was Herbert's own daughter, Grace. She doesn't seem too shaken up about the dead little girl, but instead the fact that she finally found a nice guy for once, and he turned out to be a serial killer. Oddly enough, as she talks, we see Grace happily walking toward the school. So who was the blonde girl in the bag, and what was Herbert doing to her? Something weirder than murder is going on here. Grace makes her way to the school.
Do we have two? Let's see.
Which she finds unlocked and enters her classroom. The classroom is covered in plastic tarps, and she naively thinks that Owen decorated it to be romantic. Her phone then goes off, and the caller tells her she's going to die tonight and that he's watching her. Grace isn't bothered at all and just chews him out instead. Of course, this was Norman who got the idea from Scream. He climbs up onto the desk with his mask on and jumps at Grace, knife ready. Once again, Grace isn't scared and instead lifts up Norman's mask and then tells him to go somewhere else. She's on a date. Slowly, she pieces together why he's here and confirms the truth by calling Owen's phone, which rings in Norman's pocket. Of course, she thinks this was Norman's way of trying to get with her.
It's not. He's being funny because he's like, you're dead. It's over. There's no screaming that's gonna save you.
And she immediately ridicules him, remarking that she would never have a thing for him in a million years. The thought of it makes her laugh, and she just starts cracking up until she's interrupted with a knife to the belly. And her immediate reaction is to punch Norman for ruining her shirt. She then removes the knife only for a comically huge fountain of blood to pour out onto the ground. What follows is a very funny, if not disturbing sequence where she asks Norman for help as the blood gushes, and all he can think to do is grab a large bowl to collect the gore in. She's pissed and starts screaming at him, all the while the blood continues to spurt until finally she collapses. Norman then puts on an apron and pulls out a saw, ready to cut her up, but the devil on his shoulder tells him to make sure she's dead first. They're not animals after all. After a gruesome noise and splash of blood, Norman says they're all good now. Later, after finishing up the job, Norman exits the school thinking he made it out scot-free, when he runs into none other than Miss Jameson staring him down in the dead of night. Turns out that she's absolutely smashed and runs into a pole, then accuses the pole of fondling her. Looks like Norman is going to be just fine, and he runs on home. The next day in class, Miss Jameson is doing a roll call hungover and casually crosses off Grace's name when she gets to it. I guess it worked out pretty well for Norman that she thinks Grace was killed by her father. She then tells the kids they'll have no classes today on account of it being Sylvia's birthday, and nothing to do with her being wildly trashed. On the playground, Owen, Alice, and Bader discuss Sylvia's birthday, saying they thought poor people didn't have birthdays.
So, okay. You know what? I'm not even gonna do that. I'm not.
A hilarious conversation ensues from the entitled brats, and they're soon interrupted by Olga, who says that Sylvia has brought some candy for her birthday. Sylvia offers them all a piece, and it turns out that she made it herself. It doesn't look too enticing and is all stuck together. Norman sees what's going on and tries to run, but Sylvia chases him down and offers him a candy. She says that there's a mint and peach flavor, but both of them are brown colored. Norman has no choice but to eat it, but before he pops it into his mouth, he's saved by Herbert, who interrupts them to ask where their teacher is. Sylvia points him in the right direction, and Norman takes the opportunity to bolt. Herbert finds Miss Jameson hungover in her office and opens a window to let some light in, which almost kills her. He tells her that Grace didn't come home last night and he's getting worried, but he doesn't want to go to the police for some reason, adding to his suspicious behavior.
It's not his daughter. That's what I'm. It's not his. It's not his daughter. It's not his daughter.
Thinking she knows the truth, Miss Jameson comes right out and accuses Herbert of killing Grace, and says that he just doesn't want the cops involved because who knows how many other dead kids they'd find. Overcome with rage at the accusation, Herbert slaps Miss Jameson across the face. He then immediately apologizes, saying he knows it's not nice to hit alcoholics. Outside of her office, Olga comes screaming for the teacher. Herbert then wanders out, beaten to a pulp and bleeding.
Damn.
I guess Miss Jameson got her revenge for the slap, and we can see the yardstick laying next to her covered in blood. Olga runs in screaming about how Bader ate one of Sylvia's candies and something terrible has happened. Miss Jameson ignores Olga's urgent cry for help to bask in her woes again and goes on a spiel about how hard it is to be a grown-up.
This is a terrible teacher, by the way, but she bad though, so it's like, what can you say?
Norman then runs up and says that they waited too long. Bader's dead now. Oh my god, this might be one of the worst fictional teachers I've ever seen. Olga then drags Miss Jameson to the playground where they find Bader belly up and foaming at the mouth. The teacher says he can't be dead because he's still foaming and suggests that someone give him mouth to mouth. Finally, she does it herself since, as she puts it, she has to do everything around here. But when she starts to blow air, she pukes instead, covering the kid's mouth and face with vomit. Disgusting. Next, they bring the boy's body inside, which doesn't seem to have a heartbeat. Miss Jameson randomly pulls out an old heartbeat monitor and says they should pick it up with this. She then wildly attaches the wires all over Bader's body. When she plugs it in, the whole machine explodes, shocking Bader back to life. Man, this comic is absolutely bonkers, man. It cuts to Bader at the gates of heaven talking to a hostess. She says that they recently let a bratty little girl in and it caused a clog up in admissions. Of course,
If they actually use this in the fucking story, I'm gonna. Oh my god. It's like
that bratty girl is Grace, who's yelling at the admissions lady that she needs to go back to Earth. And there's a huge line of people behind her waiting to get into heaven. Bader asks the woman why she's not in line and explains that she's a telemarketer who would call people during meal times, so now she has to earn her way into heaven. Alright, that one made me laugh. Anyway, Bader explains all of this to the class and how he was brought back here. On the next page, the teacher instructs the kids to clean everything up and hide the evidence of what happened. In a dramatic narration, we learn that Sylvia is still lurking in the shadows and is preparing a comeback. Next year, she'll bring a cake for her birthday. It's funny how they act like she's a horror villain or something when really she's just a naive little girl. Although I do wonder what she made those candies with. A couple of weeks go by and Owen
a whole bunch of things around our house that she hoped would just taste like something.
invites everyone over to his trailer. It's kind of sad. He explains how his parents dropped him off here one day and just send him food every once in a while.
Yo, this might be the worst fictional universe for having a parent ever. Oh my fucking god. You got a dude that's kidnapping fake daughters, and then you got parents dropping. Well, actually, no, he's just an anime character. This makes sense. Purple hair, green eyes. Yeah, this makes sense. He's just an anime character.
So he's living on his own. Inside, he pulls out a Ouija board and says that they're going to find out what happened to Grace by trying to communicate with her from beyond the grave. He reminds everyone that Bader claims he saw her at the gates of heaven. Norman freaks out and says that Bader was delirious and didn't know what he saw. Bader's about to punch him when Norman says the word trumpet, which causes Bader to suddenly break into song and dance. I guess it's a weird side effect from his near-death experience. If he hears the word trumpet, he thinks he's Elvis. Owen says they need silence to do this, so he shoves Bader into a closet, and they proceed with the seance. They lock hands and attempt to contact Grace, and the devil on Norman's shoulder tells him you better have brought your knife, because this could be bad. Sure enough, the planchette begins to move, but to Norman's relief, it's not Grace. However, it turns out to be just as bad. The spirit is Jeremy. Norman tries to tell him to go away and that they didn't mean to talk to him, but the others shut him up. Jeremy then reveals he was murdered by someone in this very class, and Norman is sweating bullets. Olga puts an end to the seance and says they need to get out of here before the murderer kills them all. Norman says he agrees. There's a good chance it'll get messy. While he says this, he's pulled a fork out from the kitchen, I guess as a weapon. The class is all suspicious of each other, and Norman begins to seed doubt between them, hoping they'll turn on one one another.
It's
He then
true.
accuses Owen of being the killer and starts rummaging through his things for evidence.
That was really dumb. Why would you just proceed to just be in everybody's ears talking about, you don't see the killer? Look right there. Like, yes, sounding doubt. What you have to do is by themselves. You got to split them apart. That sounds very incriminating. I probably should stop, right? I'll stop. Yeah, let's just keep going.
He ends up finding a huge collection of photos of Fast and the Furious star Paul Walker, who it seems Owen has a crush on. This embarrasses him so much that he kicks everyone out. It seems Norman narrowly avoided being found out again, but still, the fact that he can be ratted out from the afterlife is a problem. That night, Owen uses the Ouija board alone. Communicating with Jeremy, he learns that Norman is in fact the killer. The next day at school, the class cat is digging around in the sandbox when it unearths something horrific, just as Alice walks by. Elsewhere, Owen is disguised as a potted plant and tries to warn the teacher about Norman, saying he did something really bad. She tries to guess what it is. Did he cheat on a test, moon somebody, or worse, did he find her Facebook photos and is now trying to blackmail her? Well, just before she learns what Norman actually did, Alice screams out that there's a dead body in the sandbox. So that's what the cat found. The students look into the pit at the bloody mess. Miss Jameson says it's nothing to be alarmed over, it's probably just ragu. But Bader uses a stick to pull out a human ear from the blood. The teacher...
I love, like, okay, so everyone's just normal. Okay, they're praying. So we're just gonna act like that's normal? We're gonna act like that's just normal to find in general ever? These kids are gone, bro.
Demands that the culprit reveal themselves, as if it's some minor incident and not murder. Norman walks up and, after learning what they found, goes into a dramatic spiel wondering what monster could have done such a thing. He goes so far as to try and resuscitate the bloody mush in a disgusting display. Alice then finds Grace's phone amongst the remains, meaning that this is her body. At the same time, Owen comes out and reveals that Norman is the killer, still covered in blood from trying to do CPR
Norman, come on, bro. You didn't even try.
on the body. Norman does a big fake laugh and says, "Come on, do I look like a psychopath?" But before he's found guilty, Alice looks through Grace's phone and sees the messages from Owen about them meeting up at the school the night of her disappearance, making him look guilty as all hell. Alice says they need to call the cops, but Miss Jameson says that they'll keep their trap shut about this, and she drags Owen back to her office. Here she looks almost demonic when she comes up with her way of punishing him. She forces him to run laps around the school naked while the other students point and laugh.
So he kills his classmate and puts her in the sandbox, aka litter box. And his punishment is run around butt naked. If he's a psychopath, like we think he is. You think this go really get to him? Well, it is now, obviously, but come on.
Okay, well that's really weird. The students stop laughing, however, when they see a shocking sight. Herbert has arrived, and he brought with him Grace, who's
Just what the fuck?
somehow alive. They're all happy to see that she's returned, and Owen figures that Jeremy's ghost must have lied to him. Norman and the devil can't figure out how this is possible and realize that maybe Grace had a twin sister who's now impersonating her. Either way, tonight they need to finish the job. In the dead of night, Norman breaks into the second floor of Grace's house. The devil mentions all the weird photos of the blonde woman, and Norman shrugs it off, saying they have pictures of his mom at his house too. This turns
Wait a minute. Do y'all think two theories I have? Blow up doll, or he is, because this is kind of weird, those zombies. He's copying, or this might be worse. He's forcing a woman to have a baby over and over again. And all the babies just kind of look the same because, same genes.
into an argument about whether Norman's mom is actually alive, and Norman says that she just sleeps a lot is all. The devil says, yeah, well, she's been asleep for a long time. She hasn't left her room in 6 months. This seems to be another nod to Psycho. Anyway, Norman dons his iconic hockey mask and moves into the hallway, which is full of doors. You might find it
This is Shining.
familiar if you've seen The Shining, as it looks just like the hotel hallway down to the floor pattern. Norman even enters the first room he finds, number 237, just like the movie. Well, it seems to be a lucky pick. Inside he finds Grace, or her sister, but before he kills her, he gets into another argument with the devil, giving her time to scream. He stabs the poor girl in her forehead, which erupts into a fountain of blood, and she keeps screaming. He then shoves the knife into her mouth to shut her up, but needs to plug the gushing wound that's now in her head. So he grabs a nearby lamp and shoves it into the hole. It's a disturbing and hilarious mess. Norman sneaks out of the room thinking he's finally ended it, and blood slowly leaks out onto the hall floor. However,
oh my god, I gotta give up. This is the Shining all over the place. They got the twins. By the way, I did say that. By the way, you remember that, right? I said he either has a lot of twins or he's cloning his daughter.
Norman turns the corner to find not one, but two more Graces standing like creepy twins in the hall. He assumes they must be quadruplets. They start yelling.
My god. Holy shit.
And soon all the doors in the hall open and many more Graces flood in. Well, I didn't expect this. Norman doesn't know how to react and runs away till he finds a door with a skull on it labeled restricted. Inside, he finds something shocking.
Cloning, or he's kidnapping kids to look like Grace.
Several large vats contain.
What'd I say? Said he was cloning these kids. I was right.
More Grace clones, as if they're being grown.
Because they are.
As he investigates, Herbert appears in a lab coat and asks Norman what he's doing in his laboratory. He pulls out a green syringe, and I didn't connect it till now, but I believe this character is a reference to Herbert West from The Reanimator, another classic horror film. Norman throws it back at Herbert, saying he should be the one explaining himself. Why is he putting girls in jars? Herbert simply laughs and tells Norman that he's got him all wrong. Grace is not his daughter. She's his wife. It turns out that the blonde woman in all the pictures isn't Grace's mom, but rather Grace herself.
So now he's trying to grow them? But why are they all the same? Never mind, he just got into it. Never mind. You couldn't just make a adult. Never mind.
We get a flashback and Herbert explains more. After a horrible car wreck,
you were driving? Damn, our head went smooth through the windshield. Damn.
Grace died, but Herbert collected some of her remains and dedicated his research to bringing her back. Finally, he succeeded, but was only able to grow her from a child, so he must wait for her to grow up. Well, that explains the original clone, but why make so many of them? Herbert says that he is growing an infinite supply of organs so that he can keep her alive indefinitely by replacing any failed parts. Since he made so many extras, he also started making specific modifications, like Monkey Wrench Grace, who has a built-in wrench in her head.
Oh yeah, he's insane. Why couldn't, like, you would think he would just, you know, just make his wife. That's it. Maybe a couple more just in case he hits one of them, but why is there so many?
Speaking of modifications, he says that Norman's death will be beautiful and opens a door to reveal a mutated Grace who has a massive muscular arm. Instead of attacking Norman, however, she chews out Herbert for making her this way and says it doesn't matter because they're all gonna die tonight and that a plan has already been set in motion by Alpha, whoever that is. As she says this, Norman hides in a nearby trash can and the big-armed Grace says that they've rigged the house with a bomb. It seems the Graces have formed a mutiny against Herbert, and one of them starts to sound a trumpet to alert the others, but Herbert straight up shoots her in the head. Damn. Jesus. Herbert asks where the hell Alpha is and refers to him as he, meaning this must not be a Grace clone. Outside, a drunk Miss Jameson has arrived to tell—
You think it's a clone of himself? Damn. You think it's a clone of himself?
Tell Herbert that she loves him and to apologize for accusing him of killing his daughter. However, just as she rings the bell, the entire house explodes, leaving her somehow alive amongst the rubble. Norman's trash can rocketed out into a tree and he also survived. It kind of reminds me of the iconic fridge scene in The Crystal Skull. The next day of school, Miss Jameson reveals that Grace is dead. Again. She says that amongst the rubble, the police found the bodies of her and her father, as well as dozens of other children that were hard to identify because of the severity of the explosion. They've linked the recent missing children to Herbert as well, which has gotten Norman off the hook for now. Elsewhere, we see a couple of kids holding hands and watching the sunrise next to a picturesque cottage by the sea. Turns out that it's one of Grace's clones and Subject Alpha, who's revealed to be a child clone of Herbert.
I told you. I literally told you. I told you. Why does he look exactly like his older self, though? Damn, she is, damn. Well, yeah, because if you're going to have to stay with him for the rest of your life, it's over. He's not changing.
In one last panel, Grace comments on how Herbert talked her into starting this new life with him, but she didn't realize that it would be here, away from all the stores and malls. It seems she's actually not so happy about it, and that is the end of Norman.
He's definitely.
Well, there you have it. There are actually 2 sequel comics to Norman, so if you like this, I'd be happy to cover those as well. It's such a zany.
I gotta see the sequels. Hold on, let's see. Let's be honest, Norman would be the least word character in a kindergarten game. I love how half the comments are about art style and half talking about Miss James to the baddie. Yes. Put video background while drawing. Sees Miss Jameson video main screen and watch with full attention. Y'all niggas are freaks, bro. Y'all niggas are freaks. Anyway, though. That's the video down pat. Well, that's the video down pat. You know what I'm saying? This one was a little bit slower burn, if you will. I don't know. I didn't feel like I needed to commentate as much. Kind of just, you know, drop a joke here or there. Kind of talk it out loud so you can really understand what you're seeing. I didn't feel like one of those videos like Instagram really had me fucking crying, bro. Oh my god. If y'all saw my Instagram Reel page, or my For You page on Instagram Reels, oh my god, it is peak, bro. This is so funny. I don't, like, if I try not to laugh, I don't think I could. If I did try to laugh, either I'm gonna laugh within 10 minutes or I'm gonna make it to 15, but I'm gonna have to stop the video because now it's not even fun no more. Because now I'm over here just passing out doing this shit for a minute straight. Anyway, though, I'm gonna see on the series on my page. I'm very. Hold on, is that more? Oh shit, they got. Oh shit. Hold on, it's got a part 2 and shit. You know what I'm watching.
Look, the show's over, fuck it, let's call some hoes over. I leave a bitch the type who won't give her no closure. What it is, you acting like that I don't know you. You acting like that I don't know you. The show's over, fuck it, let's call some hoes over. Leave a bitch, you know, the type who won't give her no closure. What it is, you acting like